There we go.
Welcome back, friends. Sarah and I, kind of building on a little bit of our last subjects, particularly that of leisure, the basis of culture, but other things as well. We thought we should take up the topic of Catholic art, and go ahead and just say, what is it? I think we've throughout some of our shows we've used that term, that concept, and so we thought we'd go ahead and just give that a little bit of a look today in the next few episodes. All right, definition of art. This is from Stanford entries, art definition, Plato. All right, any definition. So we're going to talk about art in a very general sense, and then you can break art down into various components such as literature, music, smaller distinctions. So that's generally how we acquire knowledge, is that we have a body of information, and then we can make finer and finer distinctions of that particular topic. Okay, so there we go. Any definition of art has to square with, this is from Stanford, with the following uncontroversial facts. Entities such as artifacts or performances. So you can see they too are taking a broad definition of the word art. Intentionally endowed by their makers with a significant degree of aesthetic interest, often greatly surpassing that of most everyday objects. First appeared hundreds of thousands of years ago, and yes, we're going to get into that just a little bit with the cave art, and exists in virtually every known human culture. And the fact that that we even have a definition of art, some scholars claim that we can't even define art, that it is we can't define it. But so that is perhaps the most basic of a definition. A Platonic view. So now we're going to start to look at a historical understanding of art, and we're now very much going to go into the concept of beauty. The Platonic view, which we will revisit when we talk about beauty and Thomas Aquinas. Plato holds in the Republic and elsewhere that the arts are representational or mimetic, M-I-M-E-T-I-C, sometimes translated imitative. Artworks are ontologically dependent on, imitations of, and therefore inferior to ordinary physical objects. Physical, and this is still his from the Republic. Physical objects in turn are ontologically dependent on and imitations of, and hence inferior to what is most real, the non-physical, unchanging forms. That's going to tie into beauty. Grasped perceptually, artworks present only an appearance of the forms, which are grasped by reason alone. Consequently, artistic experience cannot yield knowledge, nor do the makers of artwork.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry. It can't be grasped by reason alone.
It is grasped. It forms which are artwork presented only an appearance of the forms, which are grasped by reason alone. Consequently, artistic experience cannot yield knowledge, nor do the makers of artwork it says from knowledge. It should be form knowledge, because artworks engage an unstable lower part of the soul. Art should be subservient to moral realities.
Wow.
Aquinas is going to pick up on that part.
Yes.
Which, along with truth, are more metaphysically fundamental and, properly understood, more humanly important than beauty. The arts are not, for Plato, the primary sphere in which beauty operates. The Platonic conception of beauty is extremely wide and metaphysical, and that's very much Aquinas' thought. There is a form of beauty which can only be known non-perceptually
Right.
but is more closely related to the erotic than to the arts. I could, yeah. Let's stop there and see if you want to have a before we go on to more definition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was just talking to my students today about the concept of the percept, which is the creation or the interaction of the human person through the senses with their material world, right? So like I can knock on the table, and I feel that thing that is underneath me. There's a solidity there, and then later on I can go back and I can recollect that feeling, that sensation. I'm not feeling it again, right? So it's kind of that level of the phantasm of. But it's interesting that he sees this, not that the artistic cannot yield in knowledge. That to me is really interesting because it is very different, right? It is it's a, and then when he says that it must be subservient to moral truth because it's so easily captured in the base elements of the human person. I mean, it leaves a perception in you without effort. And so consequently, it is truly essential that anything that would be known to be art must be subservient to morality, lest you do damage to the human mind. It's the potential for its corrosiveness is really extreme. And we're seeing that, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And let us continue. My friends, as you know, I've said this many times, Sarah and I do not rehearse. Yeah. We're glad to get on when we do.
Yeah. Yeah, when we land on the same page on the same day, we're pretty happy about that.
We're pretty happy. Aquinas. So Aquinas borrows freely from many great minds, and so he's borrowing from Plato. Aquinas will elevate the idea of beauty from erotic to the idea in the mind of the creator. Aquinas builds on Plato, but does not stay at the level of the ancients who did not have the revelation of Christ to guide them. So here's this business with knowledge, why it's not considered a science. Contrast to science. And science is that, well, let me finish on. Contrast to science, which is a systematic process of acquiring knowledge, which is repeatable and predictive. So that's the definition of science. It's a process of acquiring knowledge, which is both repeatable and predictive. Aristotle built on the understanding of Socrates, who applied philosophical inquiry to human matters. And that's why it's considered a science, because he approaches the observations around him with a systematic process. He was acquiring knowledge. It was repeatable and predictive. Aristotle, using these insights of Socrates, would state that man knows a thing scientifically when he possesses a conviction arrived at in a certain way, and when the first principles on which that conviction rests are known to him with certainty. Aristotle applied his keen perception to the natural world, where his thoughts would hold for millennia. And this idea is from Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, 1962. I find him to be an oddest atheist. And this is what he's going to say about Aristotle. Mm-hmm. Aristotle would hold sway, not because of dogmatic constraints, but because his observations provided the best analysis of the data at the time. That's why science would attend to Aristotle throughout the years, because it was the best understanding of the data at that time. And Aquinas knew this too. He knew the definition of science. He knew the that process, the predictability, and all of that. Art And so we're going back to prior starts, and we'll stop here. Art is a product of leisure. Art, in whatever presentation, takes reflective thought. So, and I would like to add in this moment, creative thought. And we're going to get a little, oh, yes. One of the aspects of the cave paintings is that our ancestors carved out the time in their hunting and gathering world to express those ideas important to them. Okay.
Yeah, it's. I think that. Who did you say that the atheist was? Thomas Kearns.
Thomas Kuhn.
Kuhn.
And let me take him off the shelf.
Yeah.
He's just an all great read. He's just a really great read.
Yeah, I think that we have sort of in the modern times we have become slaves of utilitarianism, slaves of utility, functionality, and so consequently the amount of leisure that we have has been, even though it seems as though it should be increasing exponentially by all of the mechanical things that we have not opened our mind to greater leisure. I think that we have yoked ourselves even more to utilitarian principles, and I think that that's reflective in our art. And where he said, that art is the product of leisure, but also the product of reflective thought. That's very interesting because we are a very appetitive people. We're very slaves to our appetite, which means that we are losing our ability for ponder and wonder, and that too, I think, is very visible in the lack of art that has come forth from the hands of quote unquote artists. I hesitate to use the term.
That's correct. That's correct. All right, my friends, we will pick up with art in the Old Testament. So now we took a little bit of time looking at, secular thought, a little bit of historical overview, very little, I'll admit it. And now we're turning to sacred scripture, which is where we all like to really be. Till then, Fide Serraccio.